Welcome to the AFC Great Debate. We're live from our special Great Debate studios. You can join in by typing your questions for the debaters into the chat box to the right of your screens. And please vote for the side you think makes the strongest case. They'll be debating a very hot topic. Global trade across the world is being severely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's not just a China crisis, it's a chain reaction that's taking its toll on demand and supply chains across the globe. Factories are closing down, millions of jobs are being cut, and supply shortages and bottlenecks are strangling industries globally. As countries and companies reconsider their strong dependence on production from Asia, the perception is that African countries stand to gain as these companies aim to diversify.
The default rate risk for Africa is lower than Eastern Europe, Oceania, North America, Latin America, and Asia. Yet, we don't see that in the pricing of African instruments.
Why?
Two reasons. I think just the lack of knowledge, about the real risks on the continent.
Disconnect, really.
Yes,
yeah.
And also the lack of allocation. The allocation for Africa is almost negligible.
I'm going to go to the captain against the motion for your right to reply, Paul Collier.
The continental free trade area does matter. That's important because Africa is present trade policies reduce the size of domestic markets to much too small a level. So we need something that's closer to Pan-African. So that's very important. But think what opportunities that would open up. Which are basically not necessarily export increasing to the north, but their production increasing in Africa.
I saw your opposition nodding in agreement, so I think maybe you have moved that down. Oliver Andrews, what were you thinking?
Well, I was nodding in agreement because yet again I agree with Paul. I agree with him. And for me, the two things you said, because it all ties up to what I call import substitution. Africa still is importing far too much food when in fact they can grow the food. What is lacking is the processing. But there are two reasons why that I think is happening. We can't attract those firms to do that. First is the lack of infrastructure, and central to all of that is power. We have still not got it right. And I'll come to the power in a bit. The other thing I must say is policy issues in terms of government making it ease of doing business for these firms.
Can we assume that everybody wants to live like people in the developed world? Spending most of the time working in office or commuting in a traffic jam? Not sure about that. If everybody consumed as much as an average Norwegian, we would need 5 planets. Will African or people in general become more happier with increased production and consumption? No, because in Norway, for example, consumption has quadrupled since 1980. However, people's level of happiness has been pretty constant.
I'm going to go to Jens now to respond to some of the things that you've heard and maybe buttress your case, Jens.
Renewable energy has come to Africa in a big way. And I think the programs in South Africa, Morocco and Egypt has been a tremendous success, delivering very cost-effective power. And the immediate response you get from the old utility school is, well, it's intermittent power. Yes, but it can be blended in very well with hydropower, which is developed to some extent in Africa. And if we can utilize the Kahora Bassas or the hydro projects that are now in development in Gabon or in Ghana to work in tandem with very cost-effective wind and solar projects, then we can bring that low cost of power, which can make manufacturing industry competitive, particularly when it is energy intensive industry.
The cost of capital is nowhere near reflective of the risk. 3, 4, 5 years ago, Argentina goes out and borrows, borrows money for 100 years at 6.75%, and then proceeds to go bust again for the 6th time in 30 years. And yet you won't get an African non-Francophone country able to do the same thing. Greece, which we all know nearly went bust a few years ago, is borrowing money at close to 0%. So there's this economic arbitrage that exists where, extraordinary amount of pressure is put on, or extraordinary amount of cost is put on significantly lower risk African in investments, and that actually deters from this. But I know that there is a lot of work afoot.
We have a winner, and the winner is for the motion. For the motion. Congratulations. For the motion wins. Thank you very much for some great debaters. I know that I enjoyed it. I hope that you enjoyed it too. That was the AFC Great Debate. Now back to the main program. Thank you. Goodbye.